So, NHL free agency has been crazy so far. Well, not as crazy as the NBA's offseason so far, but you know what? Pretty cool. And a lot of big name players are going to new teams. A lot of big name players are going back to teams they had previous success with. So, a lot of stuff is happening so far. Jaromir Jagr hasn't been signed though, so somebody sign him so he doesn't retire. He's an ageless wonder. We need him. But anyways, this video is just going to go over a bit of the signings recap from day 1 to day 3 of free agency. So let's just start. Yeah. Ow, I just banged my knee. Ooh. Ow. Anyways, first up, we're going to start with goalies first. Steve Mason to the Winnipeg Jets. Steve Mason's a solid goalie. He's not an elite goalie, but I think he's a very good starting caliber goalie, and they're getting him for $4.1 million per year. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's a great deal for Winnipeg, a team that struggled to keep the puck out of their own net. Getting someone like Steve Mason is going to help out, especially considering their previous goalies have been kind of mediocre. Brian Elliott heading to the Philadelphia Flyers. He's a solid goalie. A lot of people underrate him. He was very underrated from 2011 to 2016. His stats were amazing. He was able to beat out Yaroslav Halak in St. Louis, only to have them trade for Ryan Miller, who basically I mean, I love Ryan Miller, but no, he wasn't great. He wasn't really that good there. And then he lost his job to Jake Allen, not Jared Allen, Jake Allen. Ryan Miller heads to the Anaheim Ducks, 2 years, $2 million. He's a good mentor for John Gibson. Also American, so that should be fun. For them to talk about. But I think this is a good signing for Anaheim, especially because they lost Jonathan Bernier, coincidental, goes to the Colorado Avalanche. 1 year, $2.75 million, solid backup, and he's going to back up Varlamov. So very interesting how a lot of goalies in this a lot of teams that lost goalies replaced them, which is absolutely funny as hell. Which is funny, like the Ducks lost Bernier, they replaced him with Miller. The Flyers lost Mason, they replaced him with Elliott. So that's very interesting. Anyways, moving on to defensemen. Here we go. Let's get into some good stats. And this is probably the biggest signing of free agency so far, and probably going to be the biggest signing, is Kevin Shattenkirk to the New York Rangers, to his hometown team. He's from New York, New York, to his hometown team for 4 years at $6.65 million a year. Now, Shattenkirk had 56 points last year as a defenseman, which is very good. He also had a very good Corsi and Fenwick score, which if you don't know what that is, it's like a NHL puck possession stat. Google it or something. But players with good Corsi tend to help their team, tend to be better players than players with bad Corsi, and good Corsi is good, obviously. But Shattenkirk, the Rangers' defense significantly improves here. Last year they went with McDonough and Girardi. This year they're gonna have McDonough and Shattenkirk, which is a lot better. No offense to Girardi, but Girardi was one of those defensemen who's being paid a lot of money to, even though he wasn't producing like a first line defenseman, a top 2 defenseman. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyways, Shattenkirk, welcome to New York, and I'm excited for this. As a Ranger fan, I'm really excited for this. Another Washington Capitals defenseman that's leaving them, Carl Alzner. He's making $4.625 million for the next 5 years. So, solid contract. He's a defensive defenseman. He only had 13 points last year. He had a plus 28 plus minus, but his Corsi and Fenwick score were very poor. So I'm assuming the plus minus is a prospect of playing on a very good team. I think he could very well struggle when he goes to whatchamacallit, the Canadiens, which is the team he's going to. So yeah, so far I'd say that this is an okay signing, but I don't think that Alzner is going to be as good as the Canadiens hope. But hey, 28 years old, and the fact they're most likely losing Andre Markov, who knows? Alzner might come out and show people that he's not as bad as his Corsi stats show he is. And yeah. The next defenseman up is Dmitry Kulikov. He's headed to the Winnipeg Jets. 3 years, 4.333 per year. Last year was a terrible year for him. Negative 26 plus minus with 5 points last year. And I honestly, he is probably, like, honestly, by his stats and by his Corsi and Fenwick and all the stuff I've looked up on him, he is not worth top 4 money, which is what 4.333 is. It's top 4 defenseman money. He's getting paid for as a top 4 defenseman, but he's really not good. I really think this is probably the worst signing of the free agency, because he's being paid as, again, a top 4 defenseman. He might not even be NHL caliber. I'm saying it right now. He might not be NHL caliber. He may be a 7th or worse, like a defenseman who, like, yeah, the 7th defenseman on the team, basically. So I think this is the worst deal. I think the Jets did not do the work. I mean, who knows? Kulikov could come in and play very well and improve, but you never know. Trevor Daley is heading to Detroit. 3 years at $3.178 million. He had a bad year last year, but he was doing pretty well the few years before. So maybe if Detroit can unlock that talent, see if they can get that talent back out of him. You know, they could maybe have a decent year. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs last year for the first time in 24 years. They need to kind of rebuild. We'll see what they do. Matt Hunwick, and this is Trevor Daley's replacement in Pittsburgh. Matt Hunwick is going to Pittsburgh. He's going to be replacing Trevor Daley. 3 years, $2.25 million per year. His Corsi and Fenwick is just below 50. Last year he had 19 points at +8. He's a good top 6 defenseman. He's not a top 4 defenseman or a bottom or like a non-NHL caliber defenseman, but he's a solid, like, top 6 defenseman. Michael Del Zotto, a former New York Ranger, is headed to the Vancouver Canucks. 2 years, $3 million per year. His Corsi and Fenwick are above 50, and he is a very decent defenseman. One of the defensemen in the league. A lot of people doesn't get enough credit for how well he's played. Yeah. And here is my steal of free agency so far, and that is Adam Clendening. Now, Clendening played for the Rangers last year. He signed a 1 year, $650,000 contract with the Coyotes, which is, I mean, that's what the minimum. He had 11 points in 31 games for the Rangers, and his Corsi and Fenwick grades were above 55%, which is very good. Anything above 50 is good. Anything above 55 is great. So he had a very good Corsi, and he's a very good, very underrated defenseman. And can't speak English right now. He's also very young. So what is Arizona getting here? They're getting a very talented young defenseman who could develop into something pretty special. And I'm not talking about top 6. I'm talking about maybe a top 4 defenseman. Who knows? He might, like, I think he's a very solid defenseman. In fact, I think if the Rangers played him instead of Nick Holden last year, they might have been able to actually beat the Senators in Game 1 or Game 2, and I think they would have won the series. But hey, Alain Vigneault decides to put in Nick Holden instead of Adam Clendening for some unknown reason. Moving on to centers. First up, we have Nick Bonino, who's going from the defending Stanley Cup champions, the defending Stanley Cup champions, to the team he just beat in the Stanley Cup Finals, the Nashville Predators. So that should be interesting. He's a solid second, third line center. He's a good third. He'll fit in on the third line, but I think with Nashville's team, they could really use a good second line center, and he may be a fringe second line center. He's making maybe a little bit, like, yeah, I'd say maybe making a decent amount of money with $4.1 million, but I think he'll be a very good player for Nashville. Which, I mean, you know, they have the talent. They need to score some goals on offense to help, because their defense, we already know their defense is really good. Marty Hansel is going to Dallas. 3 years, that's $4.75 million. That is a steal for him. His Corsi and Fenwick were great in Minnesota. He's first-line type quality center, but he's going to end up, unfortunately for him, he's stuck behind 2 great centers in Spezza and Sagan and Spezza. So he may very well, like, I don't know what they're going to do. They probably should trade Spezza for a good defenseman, because we all know Dallas's defensive struggles. I mean, when you have Tyler Sagan, their offense looks great, but their defense they just cannot keep the puck out of their net. They have Kari Lettonen in their net, so yeah. Sam Gagner, who had a very good year last year, 50 points on a defensive team. He had a good Corsi and Fenwick. He's going to Vancouver. 3 years, $3.15 million. I think, I think it's a very solid deal for Gagne. I think Gagne will do well. But going to Vancouver, I mean, what is Vancouver doing? Are they going for a rebuild? Like, what? I don't even know. Vancouver's just stuck in limbo. They can't decide what they want. But Gagne is not a terrible player, especially if they decide to trade away the Sedin twins. But I don't think they're going to do that. Yeah. Jumbo Joe Thornton. Is headed back, or he's staying with the San Jose Sharks. 1 year, $8 million. He actually had some good Corsi and good Fenwick last year, which I heavily based this off of. And he had 50 points last year, so he wasn't as bad as people were saying he was. He wasn't elite, but he wasn't bad. And I think San Jose, I mean, $8 million is a lot of money, but it's only for 1 year, so I think they're just gonna try and get him that Stanley Cup, which sucks they couldn't win it against Pittsburgh, but yeah. Moving on to wingers, and speaking of the San Jose Sharks, their other big free agent named Patrick Marleau isn't re-signing with them. He's going to Toronto for 3 years at $6.25. He will be in his 40s when his contract expires. Last year, he had only 46 points, but he had 27 goals. So I think this is a great fit for him. I mean, Austin Matthews, pair him with Austin Matthews and someone else. I mean, you got a Nylander and Marner and those guys. Those guys are very young and good playmakers. He also had positive Corsi, so I think he'll do well there, especially with the fact that he has a lot of really good playmakers on that team. Chris Kunitz signs a 1 year, $2 million deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He had good Corsi last year, only 29 points, but he's only making $2 million, so he'll be a very good third liner for the Lightning. Who, I mean, they're just after missing the playoffs last year, they're probably gonna get back in the playoffs this year. I don't know who falls out, but they'll probably get back in the playoffs this year with the moves they're making for whatchamacallit, I can't remember what the moves they're making this offseason. I can't believe I can remember to say that. Patrick Sharp is headed back to Chicago, where he won 3 Stanley Cups on a 1 year, $800,000 contract. He's making less than $1 million. Chicago just got the steal of the century. This might be the steal of free agency. His plus minus was terrible on Dallas, but to be fair, Dallas's defense was terrible as well. He had very good Corsi and Fenwick, so they were doing well when he was on the ice. They just couldn't they just gave up a lot of goals, a lot of fast goals. And Dallas signs his replacement in Alexander Radulov, who had 54 points last year. He signs a 5-year, $6.25 million deal per year. He had good Corsi and good Fenwick. Radulov, of course, had a pretty big playoff series against the Rangers. He did pretty well. I think this is a good signing for Dallas. They continue to improve with Ben, Sagan, Hansel, Spezza, and Radulov. That is a nice group of forwards there for your top 6. Plus, them, I forgot, they probably also have some young kid I don't know about. So, yeah, probably someone good. I'm not expecting, I'm not expecting, what's his name? I'm not expecting Dallas to be, handicapped offensively. I think they're going to score a lot of goals, but they're going to give up a lot of goals as well. Yeah. And yeah, that looks like that's it. Yeah, that's it. That is all the major signings that I am covering in this video. Which signing do you guys think is the best signing? Which signing do you think is the worst signing? Which signing do you think is a good signing? And which is the biggest steal, And are you happy with what your team has done so far this offseason? I'm very happy with what the Rangers have done. Leave that in the comments down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.